I think is obesity is a risk factor for hypertension and type 2 diabetes as well, and gestational diabetes, which is diabetes in pregnancy.
Yeah.
So imagine.
Welcome to In Her Space podcast, a safe space for raw and real conversations with women who have walked in those shoes. Unfiltered experiences makes it her space. Hosted by yours truly, Ivie Ekong.
Welcome to the first episode of In Her Space podcast, hosted by me, Ivie Ekong. In today's episode, we are diving into health-related issues that affect Black women in the society, and we're going to talk about women's health, postpartum care, fibroids, just the health issues that we Black women face in today's society. And today I've got a beautiful guest joining me today to talk about everything women's health. Her name is Dr. Sandra. She's someone I admire and I've admired for a very long time because of what she does for, women and especially women in the Black and African community. Dr. Sandra Isibor is a certified lifestyle medicine physician with a postgraduate diploma in obesity and weight management. Correct. Her work empowers and emphasizes on individuals and communities to adopt healthier lifestyle. And additionally, she has been very active in national health campaigns advocating for healthcare access for ethnic minorities. So, Dr. Sandra, we are so happy to have you here on our very first episode. I think we need to clap.
Honestly, I feel very honored to be here. And like I was saying to Ivy, this is well needed. We need that space to be able to talk about women's health because it's been ignored for so long. And I want to say thank you for taking the time to organize this. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the talk. Brace yourself.
Okay, so I think my very first question for every guest is her space, because the podcast is called In Her Space.
Yeah.
So what does her space mean to you? Just having your own space. What does that mean to you?
I think that's really important, especially for me now being a mom.
Yes,
having my own space is very important. I love my son, but I need my space as well. And I think for every woman there, whatever age you are, is just having that time because we're very unique in the way we've been made and formed and built. And the way our brain works as well. Yeah, we're used to multitasking and do it all. So sometimes you need that time to just recuperate, to have that time to breathe and, reignite yourself and refuel yourself and all of those things.
Absolutely.
And just to have that space to be loved and to be cared for as well. So yes, that's what her space means to me.
That is so important.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I thought of, when I was thinking of the name for this podcast, because I felt women, we do a lot.
Yes.
Everyone relies on us for so much. And most times we forget us. We forget our space.
Yes.
So even though it's just taking 1 minute to go into the bathroom and just breathe, or go to just do that thing that would energize you and help you back up again to then, of course, attend to the 1 million things that is waiting to be done.
To-do list.
Yes, to-do list is unending. So we'll dive straight into it now. Black women's health, I think we should touch base on that first.
Absolutely.
Do you think women's health issues, especially during pregnancy and childbirth, issues such as high blood pressure, depression, even fibroid, because I had fibroid through all my pregnancies.
Wow.
But once I have the baby, then they don't find the fibroid anymore. So I don't know if that is the case for some people as well. And I know there are some people who have, they have to live with it forever. So I would probably say I was lucky that it's just during the 9 months of being pregnant. So what do you think, and what do you think we can do to alleviate some of those issues?
So you've mentioned a lot there, and the first thing to
Yes.
say is that I do agree there's not a lot being done for women, and we know especially Black women. Looking at the statistics,
Yes.
you know, I mean the statistics show that there's some improvement. In 2018, it was about, you know, Black women were 5 times more likely to die in childbirth. Now it's about 3 times more likely, but it's still high because it still shows that there's some disparities for Black women and for women generally. Issues are not really taken seriously, and that's really important because I was saying, and I people ask me questions all the time. I think reproductive health is something that's not really spoken about.
Yes.
Because it doesn't just start when you're pregnant or postpartum. It starts before that. Because as we know, these days, obviously, people choose not to have children, which is absolutely fine. But majority of women still would like to have children.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not educated about the issues that happen during pregnancy.
Yeah.
And that's why we end up with all of these issues you mentioned during pregnancy, hypertension, diabetes, all of those things, which, you know, in some cases can be harmful.
Yeah, very harmful if it's not managed correctly as well.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do? You know, especially as women, what do we need to do in preparation for those issues so that they don't come up?
Yes.
Is it healthy living? Is it, you know, what do we need to do? Especially high blood pressure, depression.
Yes.
There are so many women who go through severe depression while pregnant and even after having the baby. And, you know, when I used to hear that, before being a mom, I would always think, but why? You know, you have your child now. That
you should be happy.
You should be happy.
Yes.
You know, I didn't understand the depth of how, like, I just couldn't understand how it could happen.
Yes.
I personally have not experienced any depression after birth because I've had support.
Yes.
When I had my kids, my mom would come and live with me. My mother-in-law would come. My husband, very handsome. You know, I don't even see the baby most of the time. They do everything. So, and I know that support is so important for, you know, mothers. What do you have to say about that?
I think maybe let's try and split it up into physical problems, and then we'll talk about the mental health problem. They're both very important.
Yes.
One of the things you mentioned was hypertension. Okay, and how can we prevent that from happening? As we know, some people are at higher risk of having hypertension. If you have like a family history of hypertension, if you had like a parent that had hypertension during pregnancy, you can also get hypertension. Similar thing to diabetes as well. And another thing is obesity is a risk factor for hypertension and type 2 diabetes as well, and gestational diabetes, which is diabetes in pregnancy.
Yeah.
So imagine if those women understand the risk. You spoke about lifestyle. Lifestyle is really important. And that's why I say if people are educated, then maybe they have that information to make some changes before. Because there's no point waiting till you're pregnant and then you're being told you're high risk.
Yes.
Which most of us are now, because the average age for having children is in their 30s. And anything above 35, it's obviously a bit older age and it's a bit of high risk.
Yeah.
So it's important that women know that they are at risk, and we know Black women, just being Black on its own increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. So I think education is one way we can help improve that awareness, and making sure people have access to free resources. Yes. So we know the NHS website is there, but sometimes people don't even know how to access these resources or even access care within the NHS. Especially, you know, there's also the community of migrants, people that have just moved into the country as well, and they don't know how to access NHS care. So it's important that me being a healthcare professional, that I'm advocating for women to ensure that there's all those public health campaigns taken on to help women.
Yeah, that's really good. So access to education.
Yes.
And also just having, a good lifestyle even before you get pregnant or before you. And I think talking on that, like you said, people with high blood pressure, it's hereditary sometimes.
Yes.
So my mom, battled with high blood pressure, like literally when she was in her 30s. And when I'm pregnant, I do get extra monitor. So they monitor me a little bit more because of that.
Yes.
And they put me on, like, they have different categories of pregnant women.
Yes,
So I'm always in the high risk one
yes,
because of blood pressure.
Yes.
So sometimes, because they manage it well, but after having my kids now, then I now started having issues with high blood pressure.
Yes.
Which is like, and I work out, I eat well, I exercise, I do everything. And the first day, the doctor told me that your blood pressure has been really high for the past few months, and is not
going
fluctuating the way we expect it to be. I literally busted out cry. I was crying in the doctor's office. I said, I do everything. I eat well. I exercise. I'm in the gym 4 to 5 days a week. What's the why? And well, then she just said, well, based on your history, your mom did have high blood pressure. So that's probably where it's from. So I definitely get that. And that has made me even more determined to live longer for my kids.
You raised an important point there. That strong family history. And you mentioned, one thing you mentioned, your mom had it in her 30s. So that's quite early.
Yeah.
Because,
early.
For women, most times the risk of blood pressure increases when you're postmenopausal or in your 50s.
Yeah.
So your mom having it in her 30s, that's significant. And in that case, in some cases, we actually would do further investigations to find out, because sometimes there are underlying problems like kidney problems that might be triggering high blood pressure.
Yeah.
So that's important that, it's even important to know your family history to start off with. And then in that way, you can speak to your healthcare professional, like your GP. It might be that they do further investigations, especially if you're having high blood pressure at that early age.
That's really good to know. So let's talk about fibroid.
Yes. We can't escape it.
We can't escape that. And then we'll move on. So, what's your advice with women, Black women, especially dealing with, severe cases of fibroid? And to my knowledge, I know a few people who they've told that they can't even have children ever in their life because they have fibroid. What would you tell those women?
I think it's very unlikely that you will never be able to have children with fibroid. I think the first thing to say with fibroids, let me explain what fibroid is. Please, assuming everyone knows what fibroid is.
Yes.
So fibroid is when you have a growth, usually of muscle or tissue, like smooth muscle or tissue in the womb. Okay, it can be in different locations. It can be inside the lining of the womb, or on the outside of the womb, or it can be in the muscle of the womb.
Yeah.
Depending on the location, that would determine what symptoms you have.
Okay.
So for some people, that might be heavy periods, painful periods, pressure symptoms like urinating frequently. You might have constipation, and again, it can affect fertility depending on the location of the fibroids. The useful thing for women to know is that, first of all, fibroid is common in Black women.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I mean, if you look at the research, for most Black women, by the time you're 50, 80% of Black women, so that's like 4 in 5 Black women would have fibroid. And we have fibroids at a very young age. We have multiple fibroids, large fibroids. We're likely to have symptoms of fibroids and even complications from fibroids. And it can complicate pregnancies. However, the good thing is that there are treatment options. And I think that's where sometimes people don't know how to navigate the system. So if you still want to have children, you can. Obviously, it might make things a bit tricky, but you can actually have surgery to have the fibroids removed. So you don't need to have your womb removed. So they would specifically remove the fibroids.
Okay.
I mean, it might mean that there's risk of other things. So it might mean that you might have to have a C-section. I had fibroid removal actually as well. And it meant I had needed to have C-section because I already had surgery, which means you're high risk. You need to be monitored closely. You need to have a pregnancy plan and a delivery plan. But I think in this day and age, it's very unlikely that, unless it's really, really, really large fibroids and they've had to go in and it's caused a lot of damage, it's very unlikely that most women would not have children. So on a whole, I think more women with fibroids, if it's removed, if it's done properly, if the surgery is done properly, most likely you could go on to have healthy babies.
Okay, so they need to get pregnant maybe a few months after the surgery, right? Because fibroids tend to grow. So you
Yes.
can have surgery, and then if you're not pregnant, this fibroid can grow back
Yes.
again.
Fibroid is interesting
I know.
because in some cases it grows during pregnancy and in some cases it doesn't. So some cases it actually shrinks during pregnancy.
Yeah.
So every fibroid behaves differently. And like I said, it depends on the location of the fibroid as well.
Yeah.
If the fibroid is outside the womb, so what we call the subserosal fibroid, then very unlikely it would affect pregnancy actually. So it's important. That's why it's important that, go to your doctors, let them do a scan. Usually it'll be an ultrasound scan to look at the location of the fibroid, the size of the fibroid. Obviously, if it's really large fibroids, then the advice would be to have surgery before. But there are options.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what causes fibroid? I think that's what I want to know. Because if we just know what the cause is, then we would
do something about
we'll
it,
do
right?
something about it. If it's the food that we're eating, as Africans, our food is very, different. Oil and all the cholesterol and all that. And I know some people say, it's probably because of our food. But what do you think is the cause?
To be honest, the honest answer is that we don't actually know. And I think that's one area where we've not had a lot of research. Firstly, it's something affecting women and it's also affecting Black women. So there's not a lot of research funded in that area. There are some things that have been proposed, I know people talk about things like, eating beef, like red meats, can increase that. There's studies that show, again, they're not really strong studies. It's not, but there's links potentially to eating red meat.
Okay.
There's links to using chemicals. I know there's talks about relaxers, hair relaxers, which a lot of Black women use. And even things from even plastics, all the chemicals from plastics that can modify our genes. We don't. There's not one thing, but
literally everything.
Everything.
So what are we going to do?
I know. I think what we can do is to fund research. I think what we need is research, because otherwise we're just going to be assuming and guessing and
Great to actually do a proper research about it, because it's affecting women. And we are mothers, and we populate the world. You understand?
Absolutely.
And if it's affecting us and our sisters, our friends, I feel that it needs to be looked into more.
Yeah, that needs money. So we need funding. So if you're listening, maybe you can lobby for some funding for fibroid research.
Okay, so let's move on more now into motherhood. You just became a mom, close to a year now.
Yes.
And how has that been for you?
I think all in all, it's been a good journey. I think because it's been a long time coming. I mean, I was trying for 5 years.
Wow.
Yes, I had.
So you were ready.
Yeah. Well, not fully ready. I don't think you can be 100% ready, but I was excited about the adventure of having a child, because I'd waited so long, and I had like miscarriages, like pregnancy losses. So eventually when it was here, I was like, I need to enjoy this moment. But again, motherhood comes with some of its challenges.
Yes. I think that comes to my next question.
Yeah.
So what is it that no one told you about motherhood that you're now experiencing, being a mom?
Oh my God. how your senses, I think you become hyper aware about everything. I see myself waking up at night, just checking he's breathing okay. He's okay. Just checking on him all the time. You're just constant. I mean, usually we're used to multitasking as women anyways, but constantly your brain is just working. It's time to pick him up. It's time to do this. It's time to just constantly working. Yeah. But I think the difficult journey I had was at the start. Like the first couple of weeks, breastfeeding. Oh my God.
Sleepless nights.
Oh my God. The cracked nipples. Tell me about it. No one prepares you for that. The sleepless nights, yes.
I tell people that enjoy your sleep before you have kids. Once you've had kids, you're not sleeping again. And I'm not saying that just because the kids will grow to maybe like 5, 6. How many? I have 3 kids now.
Wow.
14, 11 and 3.
Yeah.
And I cannot remember the day I went to bed at maybe 9 or even 10.
Yeah.
Because you still have homework to do. Sometimes it's running, you have to iron their uniform. You have to, so it's constantly
your day is constantly full.
You wake up, you sleep,
Yeah.
And so I definitely understand that. Do you also feel that the society puts a lot of pressure on mothers?
Absolutely.
to be absolutely perfect. in
Absolutely.
everything.
I think like we're talking about is there's that pressure that once you have a child, everyone should be happy.
Yeah.
And I think society thinks that every woman is, naturally a nurturer.
Yes, a natural.
But unfortunately, not everyone is, because sometimes it depends on how you've been brought up. It just depends on
Yes.
how you are, your
Yeah.
character, your personality. Unfortunately, women have this pressure and they feel like they have to be that perfect mom. And otherwise you'll be judged as not being a good mom.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would experience mom guilt as well. And there's definitely something called mom guilt. I'm sure you've experienced it before.
I have.
Right?
I know I've just been a mom for a year, but I have.
Like when you leave the child, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have left this child, whatever. And I think at the beginning, when I had my daughter, my first daughter, I used to. But with time, I was like, I need me for me to be the best version of myself for this girl. And because my husband and I, we like to do holiday once every year, just the two of us.
Oh, that's
and
really
we've
good.
done that since we got married. So we leave the children, whether small, big, and it's just two of us. We go somewhere for 5 or 6 days. And I remember when I had my daughter then, my first daughter, I was like, wait, are we going? My husband said, oh, yes, it's been booked. I said, no, I'm not going to leave her. He was like, this is what we say we'll be doing. So we have to continue doing it. And the fact, from the aeroplane till we got to the hotel, I didn't enjoy that trip.
You were thinking of her.
I was thinking of her. I was calling her every minute. I was crying. But after that, I think I just like, okay, she's fine. When I go home, she didn't even miss me. And I think that's the thing with babies, right? They adapt so quickly. To leave them with someone. They just they don't care. As long as they've eaten, they're fine. And when I go home, I thought she was going to run to me. She was just playing. I was like, huh? And I didn't even enjoy my holiday because of you.
Well, she was enjoying herself the whole time.
So I think mom guilt went out the window from then on,
I think that was quite similar for me, actually, because when my son was about 3 months, I went just a Europe trip, city trip. For sure. And my husband was fine. He was like, oh, you should go, because I felt like I needed a bit of space. And funny enough, it was my mom trying to guilt trip me. I'm like, how could you? But again, I can understand in their generation, it's never heard of that you leave your breastfeeding, your how could you leave him? Although it wasn't what she said that got to me. It was the fact that when I got there and then I was having to pump and then throw it away because there was no fridge. And I was like, oh my God, he could have been having this milk. Yeah, it felt like I was throwing away gold. Exactly. I was like, oh my God, he should have been having all of this goodness and I'm throwing it away. But like you said, when I got back, he was fine. I'd already pumped before I left anyways, and he had more than enough food. So
I think we always do what we need to do to make sure they are okay. And they come first. So anyone that, because there are a lot of people online who shame moms.
Oh, that's so sad.
When I'm on holiday, I get messages like, oh, where are your kids? She's left them again. Your kids should come first before your husband, your kids, and I get all those sort of silly messages. And when you look at them, sometimes they are not married, so they don't know.
They don't understand.
They are ignorant. And, I think one of the things that I have pushed in my channel or on my Instagram especially is self-care, self-love.
Yes, definitely.
And you have to pour into yourself before you can pour into anyone else.
Absolutely.
Whether kid, husband, anybody. So your children want you to be the best version of yourself. And how are you going to be the best version of yourself if you don't?
I'm glad you said that, because sometimes we use children as excuse, and that's what I've learned not to, especially when it comes to your own health. Going back to health, sometimes like people are like, how do you have time? Because I still make sure I try and exercise at least 4 times a week. Like, how do you make sure you exercise? I'm like, it's important, because you want to be well, you want to be healthy, to look after your children even when you're 50, to look after the grandchildren once they start coming. So all of those things are important, because if it's a priority to you, you would create time for it. And I think that, and I know it's difficult for some moms, where single moms, where you don't, because I just live in my home with his dad, but I know it can be tough, but I think that's where we need to come in and support other women to make sure that they're also, trying to
Having
access their
that
best
time.
life, having that time and that
they
space.
need, yes. And there
Yeah.
are some gyms as well that have like nurseries,
Or creche.
where you can leave your children. I know I used to do that as well with my kids when they were much smaller, and that really helped because when my husband goes to work and I want to go, I just drop them there. They play, they learn. So yeah, it's very good. I call it an investment for
Yes.
yourself. You are investing in yourself.
Absolutely.
And no investment is a waste.
And they say health is wealth,
Health is wealth.
You want to enjoy your money.
Exactly. We're going a bit deeper now.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced trauma? And how would you deal with trauma?
Okay. So again, let's talk about trauma. What is trauma?
What is trauma?
So as you know, trauma is an emotional response to
yes.
usually a difficult or stressful event that's happened in our lives. Yes, I mean, I think most people have experienced, in your 30s, you'd have experienced some sort of trauma either through heartbreak or, something as small as, like even just failing exams, losing someone.
Yeah.
But for me, the most significant trauma I've had till date is the second trimester pregnancy loss. Okay. It was really hard for me. Yeah. Because I'd had previous early miscarriages before that. So when I got past the first trimester, I was like, oh yes, this is the promise. This is the child that's going to stay. I was already
Excited.
doing shopping. I was excited. I was, trying to walk in faith, being hopeful. And then all of a sudden this happened. Basically what happened, I went into early labor at home. I was alone at home. And I was in the bath actually naked trying to have a wash. And I had this intense pain. Within a few minutes, my waters broke. The baby was out, the placenta, everything.
What?
It just felt like a flash. Yeah, in front of my eyes.
That must have been so traumatic just to see that.
Absolutely. And the image was haunting me because I think I could constantly remember her head coming head down onto the bathroom floor. No. And in my mind, I was like, the first thing I thought was like, oh, I wish I was just there to hold her head. Like I was thinking, oh my God, she must have been in pain with that happening. And it was really, 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 really traumatic, really traumatic.
I would probably just collapse.
Yeah, I literally screamed. I think the neighbors told me later they could hear me scream.
Wow.
It was the thing. I had so much pain when I was having the labor, but then like post that, it was the emotional pain, the trauma of what happened. It was just this deep-seated pain. I just had to scream, and it was really hard going on from there.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
That is so traumatic. And how have you managed that? Because I mean, it's something that you, even with your son now, you still play those images in your mind every now. A child is a child.
Yes,
whether
absolutely.
the child was here or not. And I have experienced miscarriage as well.
Sorry to hear that.
Yes.
It's really, really sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. And just before I had Louis, I was pregnant, and I think it was 4 months. So it wasn't, like far gone yet. And
4 months is significant.
No, it is significant.
Because you're already feeling something.
Yes, feeling something, about 4 months plus or so. And my mom passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the news of her passing sort of, because she just passed suddenly, wasn't expected or anything. So I think that sort of put me in shock, and I had a miscarriage. So, but till today, I still think back, like, was he a boy? Was he a girl? Who would she have looked like? Who was he? Who would he have looked like? And so I know that it's something that still goes on in your mind till now. So how do you deal with that?
I think that's an important thing. I think first of all is recognizing it is trauma, because sometimes we try to sweep trauma as like, oh, it never happened, or and coming from an African background as well, where it's like, oh, God forbid you're not sad, God forbid you're not stressed, God forbid you're not depressed, God forbid those images are not there, but they are there. First of all, is giving people the space to and helping them recognize that something bad has happened, accepting it first, and then trying to seek help.
Yes.
And help might look different for everyone. For some people you could just be having that support, like you said, your mom was there in your previous, but having that support of family, friends, or someone you trust. Or it could be professional support as well.
Therapy.
Yes.
I had to.
Yeah. Sometimes you do need therapy.
Yeah, because I was mourning two people. I was mourning my baby, and I was mourning my mom. So only therapy could help me.
Therapy, prayers, everything.
I had close friends who really wrapped their hands around me. Yeah, it was a very tough
tough
period
time.
for
Yeah.
me as well.
Yeah. No, so definitely having that support is very important. And I think the other thing as well, I mean, for someone that's experienced the trauma, it's important to let yourself heal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I say that because you feel like, I mean, everyone wants to get better.
Yes.
But I think it's just believing that things can be better, that there is hope after whatever event has happened. And there's potential joy even from the sad times.
Yeah,
and there are
very
things
important.
potentially that you could learn from those experiences. And even what's more fulfilling is using that experience to help other people as well. I think which is where I'm at as well, where I
Yeah.
just want to give back. I want to make sure that no one has to go through that. And if you have something like that, you don't have to go through that
Yeah.
alone, and you have the right information, the right resources to be able to help you through whatever
Yeah.
journey that is.
That is so amazing. And with what you're doing, it also helps you heal.
Yes,
Just
absolutely.
doing that, because
yes,
you know that you're helping someone, no matter how, even though it's one or two people, that
Yes,
gives you
yes,
joy,
yes.
and joy helps you heal.
And that's what In Her Space podcast is
And that's
doing.
what our space podcast is for. Oh, that's so lovely it's so lovely to hear your story and how you've managed to, get out of some of the challenges that you faced as a woman, because we all face challenges.
Yes, absolutely.
Different challenges, whether we are moms, we are not moms. It's a lot being a woman, but I love being a woman.
Oh yeah, I don't want to
Do
be
you like
anything
being
else.
I love.
Yeah,
I want to be a woman.
Actually, but to be honest, I wouldn't say I've always been that way because I didn't like periods. To be honest, when I was a teenager, I was like, why do I need to have periods? But I think now I've come to embrace it. But Ivy, I just actually wanted to talk about. I know you touched on it.
Yes.
Because we're talking about trauma. It's about
Yes,
postpartum
yes.
depression.
Yes,
You mentioned it. That's actually quite important because, it affects significant proportion of women. I mean, the statistics is about
Yes,
15 to 20%
absolutely. Yeah.
of women experience postpartum depression within the first year. And you said you had your mom for support, which is good. I think in African cultures, they say, Mugo, you have
Yes,
someone
yes,
come to
yeah.
help you. That really, really helps. Because being alone is one of, the risk factors, and
Yes.
having a family history of someone that's had
Had it.
postpartum depression as well is also a risk factor.
Okay.
But I think more importantly, the problems with that is stigma. Okay. We're also talking about trauma, why people don't come out to say like they're feeling a certain way,
I
because
see.
you're expected to be happy after
Yeah.
you have a baby, like we said. So the stigma is a lot from society because there's that expectation that, you have this precious gift, you should be happy
should be
about it.
happy.
So some women don't come out to say that they're in a low state and they need
Yeah.
that support. And as we know, if it's not handled properly, it can even cause further problems. There have been incidents of
Yeah.
suicide, because people just feel like they're
harming.
not good enough, or
Yeah,
self-harming.
self-harm, or
Yeah.
even harming the child.
Or harming the child, exactly. So it's important that we encourage, if we know women that have just given birth, it's important that we take that time to ask them, I mean, how are you?
How are you?
How are you really?
Yeah.
Not just how are you, like, like, how are you really? Like, what
Yes.
can I do to help? Is there anything you want to talk
Yeah.
about? How is your sleep? How's all of the things? And when they say things, don't dismiss them.
Yeah.
Making sure they get the help and the support they need.
Absolutely. And I saw a video recently on social media, and a girl who just had a baby was crying. It was trendy. I don't know if you saw it.
No.
She came on the internet and was literally crying and said, I'm alone with this baby. I'm tired. I haven't slept for at least 5 days straight. And she really cried in that video. I wish I could hug her and just tell her you'll be okay, And I think what happened was her brother lived in another country.
Okay.
And then the brother saw the video online.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And the brother was like, every time they speak, this girl says, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like he speaks with her every single morning. And she's, how are you? I'm okay. How is the baby? I'm okay. Just seeing this now, and I think it goes back to what you said. Like a lot of people, they deal with it personally. They don't want to talk about it because of the shame and he was like, I'm booking my flight. And he then did a video that he's with her.
Oh,
and
wow, okay.
Yeah, he's taking some time off work to go and support her for 14 days, which is, even one day helps.
Yes. I think you said that, because I think for women, I mean, having just given birth not long ago, it's important that you have that, face-to-face connection,
Yes.
someone like where
Yeah.
you can, if you want to sleep, you can hand the baby over to
them.
because I know obviously we're in a virtual world, but unfortunately some support can be it can't virtual support is not enough.
It's not enough.
These women, I'm saying, including myself, we need someone that would actually, because I mean, if someone asks me over the phone if I'm okay, especially if I don't know if they really want to come, I'll probably say I'm okay, depending on who I'm speaking to, right? But as opposed to someone coming and say, oh, I'm here, what can I help you do? You know, while you go and get some rest. Which my mother-in-law is very good at doing, actually. So,
good. That is so important. You know, if you're listening to this and you have any friend that just had a baby, don't assume that they are fine. You know, your family member, just pick up the call. Whether even if sometimes they may tell you, don't worry, I'm okay. Tell them I'm still coming. Anyway. And go there, take the baby from them 1 hour, let them go have a nap or just have a shower or something. Every little helps.
Absolutely.
And I think if we can do that, as a community, there will be less issues of depression and anxiety, and women just feeling alone in this journey. It's not supposed to be like that.
It shouldn't be that way.
Days, we had our parents had a village. If you have a child, like the whole village raises that child.
Exactly.
Back in the days, we don't really have that anymore now, but we can still do as much as we can to support each other.
Every little helps, like you said. Every little helps.
That little nap, you don't know what that nap is.
I know, like that nap can solve, like, a lot of problems.
A lot. So what advice would you give to anybody who wants to be a doctor? What advice would you give to any woman listening to this, or anybody who wants a career in the medical field?
I think the first thing to say, well, that's good that some people are still thinking of being doctors. We need you, because I'm going to get old as well. I need a doctor. I need good doctors too. But I think the first thing, the thing with what's happening in the age we're living in, that people know that they can do other things. You can do other things and still be successful. So it's important that if you still choose to do medicine, that you take that time to do your research to make sure that it's for you. Okay, but I know when you're 16, because you have to decide quite early, to decide what kind of course you do at A-levels and university and all of those things. Sometimes it's hard to know. The thing is, if you end up in medicine, it won't be that bad. Even if you don't end up practicing it, it's not a disaster, because you learn about the human body, you learn about the human mind, you learn a lot about other things. But in terms of personality-wise, I would say to be a doctor, ideally you should be a good listener. Okay. You should be inquisitive. You're almost like I see myself as an FBI agent, trying to figure out what's going on. Tell me more. Because that's a good way to help, because a lot of it is in the history. Really we do examinations these days, we do scans and the rest of it, but ultimately it's what the patient tells you. That's what you use to help them. So it's important that you're a good listener, you're patient enough to listen. You're also kind, because ultimately you want to improve the lives of people. You need to be compassionate as well. Try and put yourself, empathize with your patients. You want to put yourself in their shoes. See, I'm sounding like maybe the Republic will not agree with all of this. Maybe they don't feel their GPs are this way.
Well, I don't think all GPs are like that. I think you are just very passionate about what you do. And like you said, you have to be passionate for you to be able to do all these things that you're saying. So I don't think
ultimately you want to improve
types of GPs. Not all of them.
Well, like support your GPs. They might be going through a lot as well, with little funding, we have to talk about these things, but yeah. I think, and you need to have some sort of quest for science and knowledge seeking, because it's constant learning, and you need to know that you're going to sacrifice some of your time, to be a doctor. You might not see your friends and parents the way you want to, or party the way you want to, especially in your youth. So all of those things has to be put into context.
And you need to just be a people person too.
Yes,
you need to like people.
Although saying that, when you say doctor, the thing with medicine, there are different roles. As a GP, definitely you need to, be a people's person. But you could end up in the labs if you don't want to be a people's person. You can end up, looking at scans. So there are different roles. For doctors. But I think ultimately, once you go into medicine, you would find a specialty that also works for your personality.
Okay, that's a really, really useful insight. I think I've actually digged into a lot of some of the topics that I really wanted to discuss with you today. We have a few more, and then, I'll let you go.
It's okay. I could talk about women's health, Black maternal health all day long. Yeah.
Okay. What advice would you give to women from ethnic backgrounds that can substantially improve their health and lifestyle?
Okay. That's a very good question.
Based on all the topics, everything
was spoken about
today. Yeah.
Yes. I think for women from minority ethnic groups, including Black women, I think it's important to learn how to, first of all, have a bit of knowledge, because knowledge is power, and sometimes you don't need to go into too much detail, but at least know what's happening with your body. Yeah. Sometimes you might have to write down your symptoms to be able to articulate it properly. And then once you know what's happening to you, you need to advocate for yourself. And I'm not saying that because even as a doctor, I also have to advocate for myself. And it shouldn't be the way. It shouldn't be that way. I think ultimately, you should go to healthcare professionals and you get the help that you need. But unfortunately, the world it's not programmed that way. So it's important that you can advocate for yourself. If you feel like something is wrong or you're not happy about something, speak up. If you're still not happy, you can get a second opinion. If you don't feel like your questions have been answered or you've got the right support you need, and talk to other women. It's amazing how, because part of the problem within our culture is that people hide things a lot.
Yes.
Miscarriages, you don't want to talk about it. So many things you just hide and hide and hide and hide. But
even IVF.
Yeah.
When I went through IVF treatment a few years ago, I didn't know anyone that has gone because nobody talks about it.
Yeah. You just come give testimony. I have a child,
in our community. Whereas in other communities, they talk about it and they support each other.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I spoke about it online. And I was very vocal about it because I thought, why is no one talking about it?
Yeah. Considering that a lot of us are actually, I haven't done IVF, but a lot of Black women do IVF because we're having children later as well.
Yeah, mine didn't work out, but I would have wished someone told me that expect this, expect that,
the injections, how you feel,
Nobody told me. I had to learn
then along
the way. So you're very, very spot on. You're right.
Yeah, we need to be more open. We need to share what we learned within our communities.
Yeah.
And we need to support each other.
We need to support each other.
Yeah.
I'm going to stress that. We need to support each other as women, especially in our community. We need more of that. We need more of, sisterhood.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like community. Support your friends, support the people around you, try and form new circles, try and form new friendships, know. And I think one of the things I also notice about our community is we are very comfortable where we are comfortable.
Oh, yes. Staying within your comfort zone. Yes, that's true.
If you have certain friends, those will be your certain friends. And every other person is an outsider, and I think if we keep doing that, we're not really going to go far.
Absolutely.
We need to make new friends, make new acquaintances. Yes, you don't need to throw away the ones you already have.
Exactly.
And it helps with your growth as well, because you're learning new things from people and you're just expanding your
expand your circle as well.
Yeah.
Because even me, I was like, I need to make sure all my friends are not just doctors.
Yes.
And, I have friends, like Ivie, fashion. I'm learning some fashion tips from her,
Oh, you're so sweet. Okay. We're going to end now with just the last question is, what would you tell your younger self today? If your younger self was sitting right next to you, what would you tell her?
Okay, I think the first thing to say is that life comes in seasons. So make the most of each season. Like, you literally enjoy each season.
True.
When I look back, I'm like, I can still remember when I was a teenager. What was I even stressing about? What was I stressing out? The way I was even stressing about going through medical school. Why? Yeah. Just enjoy every season. Like now, and that's what I've told myself even now. Like now I'm in the motherhood season. Young mother, new mom. Trying to enjoy every season. Trying to leave the house and he spills something and you have to go back. I'm like, oh, well, it is a season. I mean, you just have to do it.
Yes.
So it's just making the most and have fun. I think that's one thing, like, you know, have fun. You know, life, you don't need to be too serious.
That's a good
you know,
one.
coming from a doctor, I know everything, but
that's a good one.
I think I was too serious in medical school. I'm like, I missed out on so much fun that now I want to have so much fun. So I'm doing it backwards in reverse, but you know,
at least you're doing it.
At least I'm doing it. Yeah. So that's why you see me traveling, doing everything I want to do. You know, because life is short.
Life is short. Enjoy. You know, just have fun along the way.
Absolutely.
Every challenge comes and goes.
Absolutely. That's the season, ain't it? When you're in a season where it's your lowest season, you know, that's where you need your friends that you've been pouring into as well to come and hold you up in that season, your family, your friends, loved ones. And then when you're in a season where you're happy, everything is working, also support other people going through their own tough season, but also make the most of that season you're in. Enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Oh, that's a very, very good takeaway. I have learned a lot today from Dr. Sandra. Thank you so much, Dr. Sandra, for
it's
joining
good to be
us
here,
and
honestly.
for your beautiful insights, you know, into women's health. And I hope you listening at home, you've learned something and you've taken away one or two things from today's episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on today's podcast. You can watch us on YouTube and on social media and on all podcast streaming platforms. They'll all be there. And we'll see you in our next episode of In Her Space.
Ooh.
Bye from us.
Thank you.
Let's clap for Dr. Sandra.